Greetings, Jay here. We're going to get straight into it. Add an instrument track. We're going to add an instance of the M1, Korg's M1 VST. And we're going to call it M1 drums because what we're going to be doing is sampling drums from an M1 kit. So let's click on Program, go to the browser, click on the all clear buttons to make sure nothing is pre-selected in a range, and choose drums hit, and then KO139, which is the house kit, and audition that. We want to kill that reverb, so go to Insert Effects, and it's on FX2, the reverb in this instance, and that will just give us the equalizer, and that's fine because we want some high end. From then, we will create a section, an event, that we're going to populate with notes in our editor, our MIDI editor role. And obviously these notes correspond to the hits on the M1 house kit, which was an expansion card on the original model. Now, I never owned an M1. I was too young, but I did have access to one because one of my dad's friends in his band had an M1, and I didn't realise what I had access to. I used to play on this keyboard all the time, but I just really didn't know the potential of its time. Yeah, looking back, I was like, time wasted, I expect. Anyway, so what I'm doing is adding all these notes. I've sped up the video here, by the way, just because you've got to do this in your own time, and you don't want to watch me just click and add hits all the way through this event. Make sure you leave enough space though between the hits, because obviously some are short, staccato style, but you've got crashes and you've got reverses, reverse cymbals, and they've got bleeds and tails that you need to compensate for when you're going to render this. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to render this file. So edit, and it's render in place, and we can render with the current settings because we haven't got any plugins. And there's our output waveform, and let's bring up the gain a bit. So we select it. Now we want it in our lower editor window, and we want to edit some hit points. The hit points are going to be wrong, certainly on the reverse hits. So we need to take away those false hit points. You can remove a hit point by hovering over the triangle shape, and it'll turn into an X, and then just click on that and it'll remove that hit point for you. Again, there we've got a reverse which it doesn't start in the right place. We need to move that one onto the grid, which is the correct place because everything was on the grid. And you can happily audition each hit point to see what comes out. Once we're happy with that, we'll commit to slices by creating slices on that button. And we select all our slices in our editor. And we do some tidying up, a bit of housekeeping, and that's by going on to Audio, Advanced, and Detect Silence. Now in here you can set the threshold that it will open or close the gate. They can be linked or unlinked. Minimum time that you open it, say 1/3 of a second, that's close enough. Minimum time it's actually closed after a hit. And you want to apply that or process all selected events, so it does it to every slice. And you can put a tail fade out as well, 30 milliseconds. Click process when you're done, and you'll see what has happened. It's chopped all those slices down, taken off all the extraneous data. You can do slice creation in Groove Agent, because we are going to use Groove Agent, by the way. But I prefer doing it this way because then I can assign stuff to the pads I want without it just spreading across them in a sequential order. So creating the track the Groove Agent track SC, just use a stock inbuilt to Cubase. Give it a name and just start dragging our slices onto the samples. Kicks usually go on C1 and B0. And then your snares usually hit around D1. I think side sticks a C sharp one. Laying out your kit in a general MIDI style map is actually a good idea, especially if you're going to import drum MIDI files. Now we'll make a snare. Okay, we've got a snare, but we've also got another snare in there somewhere. So I'll add a layer. Okay, so we've got two, but they're activated at different volumes, velocities rather. So let's use layer, and that will play both samples simultaneously, which is what I want in this instance. Let's add this other snare as well. So we've got three, and that really gives us a unique sound. And it's quite a common trick to stack percussion sounds on top of each other. Rename your pads so it makes sense. We're going to use those names, by the way, later in the drum map. Once you've done all your pads, save your kit. Give it a name that means something to you, of course, and fill out any attribute values. So character of it, if it belongs to a family of kits, if you're going to give it a library name, obviously author, because that's from you. So I've just loaded a kit that I created earlier, and it was from the M1 House kit. I've got an 808 boomy kick on B0. So what I want to do is bring in the drum map from the instrument. This will grab all the drum pad names from Groove Agent and then populate Beat Designer, which is a MIDI insert. And if you look at the left of Beat Designer, you can see all those drum names that were on the pads. Using the mouse, click on the plus of the bottom hit, and it will add more of those drum pads until you've completed the kit. I've already pre-made some beats. And so we now have our kit being used in the fashion that makes most logical sense. If you're not familiar with Beat Designer, you really should have a go at it. It's a very simplistic grid method of drum programming, but for EDM, I mean, that's how it all started, really. Obviously, you consider those classics like the 808 and the 909. That's how things were programmed. Okay, we have a visual feedback, which is a lot easier and quicker to use, but nonetheless, the logic semantics are the same. Plus, you can save these Beat Designer sequences, and you can share them around. Go back to Groove Agent. Create exclusive groups. They're like choke groups, sometimes known as. So you don't want both hats playing simultaneously, like you close and you open. Put them in the same exclusive group. In this case, I did it as one, and they will cut each other out. So one plays, the other one plays, and the other one stops it, basically. Also, you can assign your pads to different outputs, and this is the main reason we sampled this kit, so we could then channel our percussion, our drums, to different outputs and then process those individual outputs. And obviously that's going to be really useful for producing a more profound and deeper mix, if you like, that gives you the opportunities to do things you just couldn't do by a stereo output from the VST. It's not a bad idea to start your tracks out at minus 12 dB. That'll give you some headroom for when you start bringing the elements of your track together. Thanks for watching.